"They're hitting my mother." The desperate cry cut through the silence of the Italian restaurant like a knife. All conversation ceased instantly. Forks stopped in midair. Glasses hovered halfway to lips. In the main dining room of Bella Vista, where men in suits discussed business in low, respectful tones, the interruption was like a thunderclap on a clear day. An 8-year-old boy had burst through the front door, his small hands trembling as tears streamed down his face. His clothes were torn, there was blood on his t-shirt, and his desperate eyes scanned the room until they landed on the table in the corner. There sat Vincent Romano, 52, known throughout Chicago as the man who controlled half of the city's alternative businesses. His reputation was built on 3 decades of cold, calculated decisions. No one came near his table without an invitation. No one had ever interrupted his dinner. The boy ran straight to him. "Please, sir. They said they'll kill her if she doesn't pay. I don't know what else to do." The child grabbed Vincent's suit sleeve with desperate force, his pleading eyes fixed on the face of the most feared man in Chicago. The entire restaurant held its breath. Vincent's security guards moved instinctively, but he raised a hand almost imperceptibly, freezing them in place. Vincent looked down, studying the boy's face. Something in his eyes, perhaps the way the child stared at him without fear, only pure hope, stirred a distant memory in his mind. A memory from 30 years ago, when he himself was young and had lost someone he loved to senseless violence. "What's your name, kid?" Vincent asked, his voice surprisingly gentle for someone with his reputation. "Jerome, sir. Jerome Williams. My mom's Donna Williams. She works at the laundromat on Oak Street. Some men showed up today demanding protection money, but she doesn't have any money to pay them. The boy's voice broke. Vincent knew the laundromat. An honest business in a neighborhood that was slowly being swallowed up by smaller gangs that didn't respect the old rules, the rules he himself had helped establish decades ago. Rules that protected honest workers from random extortion. "How many men?" Vincent asked, his voice still calm, but something dangerous glinting in his eyes. 3. One of them had a scar on his face and talked about how nobody cares about people like us in this neighborhood. Vincent nodded slowly, his jaws clenching almost imperceptibly. Tony, his right-hand man for 15 years, approached discreetly, awaiting instructions. "Jerome," Vincent said, placing a heavy but comforting hand on the boy's shoulder. "You were very brave to come here. But tell me something, how did you know who I was?" The boy wiped his nose with his dirty shirt sleeve. "My mother always said that Mr. Romano is the only man in this town who still has his word. That if we ever needed real help..." Vincent felt something stir in his chest, something he had buried long ago. That woman, working honestly to raise her son alone, had taught the child to seek him out in desperation. There was a cruel irony in that, a mother sending her son to the most dangerous man in town for protection. But perhaps she knew something the others didn't. Perhaps she understood that behind Vincent Romano's reputation, there still existed a code of honor that many had forgotten. "Tony," Vincent said quietly, without taking his eyes off Jerome, "get the car ready. And call Dr. Martinez, tell him you may have some work for him today." As Tony walked away to make the calls, Vincent knelt down to Jerome's eye level. "I'm going to help your mother. But first I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Every detail, every word you heard." Jerome took a deep breath and began to tell his story, while Vincent listened with the attention of a general planning a war. What the boy didn't know was that his desperate search for help had just awakened something Chicago hadn't seen in years. Something that would make those men who terrorized a working mother wish they had never been born. And if you're enjoying this story of courage and justice, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what Vincent Romano did next not only changed Jerome and his mother's lives, but redefined the rules of power throughout the city. Jerome took a deep breath, wiping away his tears with the backs of his small hands. The men arrived at the laundromat when Mama was closing up. They said the neighborhood now belonged to the Iron Wolves and that everyone had to pay weekly protection money. Vincent knew the Iron Wolves. A new gang, made up of ambitious young men who didn't respect the city's old hierarchies. They operated through pure terror, without the rules of honor that men like Vincent followed religiously. "Mama said she already paid taxes and worked honestly," Jerome continued, his voice trembling. The man with the scar laughed and said people like us should be grateful for being allowed to work in their neighborhood. Then they started breaking the washing machines. Vincent's jaw tightened. Donna Williams was known in the neighborhood as a woman who worked from sunrise to sunset to give her son a decent life. Widowed 3 years ago when her husband died in a construction accident, she had turned a small laundromat into a community gathering place where mothers left their children while they worked. How much did they ask for? Vincent asked, his voice dangerously calm. $200 a week. Mama said the laundromat doesn't even make $100 a week. That's when the man with the scar grabbed her by the arm and said, Jerome stopped sobbing. What did he say, Jerome? He said if she couldn't pay in cash, she could pay in other ways. And that I was handsome enough to be useful too. The boy's voice broke completely. Vincent felt a rage he hadn't experienced in decades rise up his spine like volcanic lava. During his 30 years in the Chicago underworld, he had seen and done terrible things, but there had always been a line that real men never crossed. Children were off limits. Working mothers were off limits. What was the name of the man with the scar? Vincent asked, his voice now completely icy. Jake Malone. I heard someone else call him that. And there was a woman too, a redhead with a snake tattoo on her neck. She filmed everything on her cell phone, laughing and saying she was going to post it on social media to educate other rebellious merchants. Vincent gave an almost imperceptible signal to Tony, who immediately began making calls. In less than 24 hours, they would have Jake Malone's address, criminal history, and even the brand of his toothbrush. Jerome, is your mother hurt now? The boy nodded, new sobs escaping him. When they finished breaking everything, Mama tried to call the police. The man with the scar snatched the phone from her hand and pushed her against the wall. She hit her head and started bleeding. Then they left, laughing, saying they'd be back tomorrow to get the money. Vincent looked around the restaurant. His men waited for instructions, but there was something different in the air. For the first time in decades, Vincent Romano wasn't calculating profits or territory. He was remembering something much older and deeper. 30 years ago, Vincent had lost Maria, his wife, in exactly the same way. Criminals with no code, no respect, who believed that brute force gave them the right to do anything. At the time, he was just a young soldier in a minor family. He didn't have the power to avenge Maria properly. That pain turned into the calculating coldness that made him rise through the ranks of organized crime. But now it was different. Now he had power. Now he could do something. Tony, Vincent called his lieutenant. I want a medical team at the Oak Street laundromat in 15 minutes. Dr. Martinez and his entire team. And I want information on every member of the Iron Wolves by tomorrow morning. Tony nodded and walked away, talking quickly on the phone. Vincent turned his attention to Jerome. Does your mother have family? Anyone who can take care of you tonight? We have Grandma Maria, but she lives across town and doesn't have a car. Don't worry about that. I'll arrange transportation. Vincent paused, studying the boy's brave face. Jerome, I need you to understand something. What these men did to your mother went far beyond any rule that governs this city. They weren't collecting protection money, they were terrorizing an innocent family. The boy looked at Vincent with eyes that seemed too old for his 8 years. Are you really going to help Mama? Or are you going to do like the police, who said that incidents between merchants and collectors are complicated to investigate? Vincent felt his anger rise another notch. The police had already been contacted and had refused to act. That meant the Iron Wolves had some kind of official protection, or at least had bought some badges. Jerome, I'll make you a promise, Vincent said, kneeling down again to be at the boy's eye level. Your mother will never be threatened by these men again. You'll never have to run desperately through the city looking for help again. And the Iron Wolves will learn that there are consequences for their actions. The boy studied Vincent's face for a long moment, as if assessing the sincerity of his words. Finally, he nodded. My father always said that a man of his word is worth more than 10 rich men, Jerome murmured. Mama always says that you are a man of your word. Vincent felt something break inside his chest. That woman had taught her son to seek him out not out of fear, but out of respect. Not as a criminal, but as someone who still upheld a code of honor in a world that had forgotten what that word meant. At that moment, Vincent Romano made a decision that would not only change the lives of Jerome and Donna Williams, but redefine the balance of power in Chicago. The Iron Wolves had made the fatal mistake of underestimating both their victims and the forces that protected the innocent in this city. They were about to discover that some lines should never be crossed, and that revenge, when executed by someone with unlimited resources and personal motivation, could be more devastating than any storm. As Jerome settled into the chair next to Vincent's desk, waiting for the doctors to arrive to treat his mother, something dark and relentless had awakened in the heart of the most powerful man in Chicago. And the Iron Wolves had no idea of the hurricane that was about to destroy their existence. In the Oak Street laundromat, Dr. Martinez finished stitching the cut on Donna Williams' forehead, while Vincent watched from across the destroyed room. The washing machines were overturned, the glass in the door was shattered, and crushed flower petals covered the floor like macabre confetti. "She'll be fine," the doctor said quietly, putting away his instruments. "Mild concussion, but nothing serious. She'll need a few days' rest." Vincent nodded, his eyes studying every detail of the destruction. This wasn't just vandalism, it was a cruel and calculated show of power. Jake Malone wanted Donna to understand exactly how vulnerable she was. "Mama." Jerome approached the makeshift bed where Donna rested, still dazed from the night's events. "I'm here, my love," she murmured, opening her eyes and forcing a brave smile. When her eyes met Vincent's, a mixture of gratitude and embarrassment flashed across her face. "Mr. Romano, I don't know how to thank you. Jerome shouldn't have bothered you with our problems." Vincent approached, his presence imposing but strangely comforting in that intimate, destroyed space. "Donna, may I call you that?" she nodded. "Your courage in protecting your son and your business is no problem at all. It's exactly the kind of strength that should be protected, not attacked." As they talked, Vincent's phone vibrated constantly. Tony had mobilized the entire network of informants in the city. In less than 2 hours, they already had addresses, criminal records, and even the social media accounts of all the Iron Wolves members. "Tony," Vincent called his lieutenant over to a corner. "What did you find out?" Jake Malone, 28 years old. 3 convictions for assault, 2 for extortion. The Iron Wolves have 22 active members, operating for 8 months. They don't respect anyone's territory, they've stepped on the Torino family's toes twice this month. Vincent raised his eyebrows. The Torinos had controlled the port for 15 years. If the Iron Wolves were challenging even them, it meant they were either stupidly ambitious or had protection Vincent didn't know about. "Go on," Vincent said. "The red-headed woman Jerome mentioned is Cassie Morgan, a former stripper turned Instagram influencer. She actually films the collection visits and posts edited clips on social media as educational content about urban reality. She has 50,000 followers who think she's making a social documentary." Vincent felt his jaw tighten. It was even worse than he had imagined. Not only were they terrorizing working families, they were turning that terror into entertainment for the masses. "Jake has a TikTok account too," Tony continued, showing his phone. "Check this out." On the screen, Jake Malone appeared in a video posted just 2 hours ago. He was in a bar, clearly drunk, flashing a wad of cash at the camera. "The folks in the Oak neighborhood are finally understanding who's boss around here," Jake said, laughing as he counted the money. "When you teach a lesson right, the other cockroaches learn real quick where they belong." Vincent watched the entire video, his hands slowly clenching into fists as Jake described in graphic detail how he had educated a little black girl who thought she could challenge his authority. 53 comments, Tony muttered. Most supportive, some asking for more videos. People are offering him money to visit specific businesses they don't like. Vincent closed his eyes for a moment, feeling a distant echo of the night Maria died. The same cruel coldness, the same total lack of humanity. But this time would be different. This time, he had the power to deliver justice. "I need to make a call," Vincent said, walking away. He dialed a number he hadn't used in 5 years. On the other end of the line, a familiar voice answered after 3 rings. Detective Williams. "Sarah, it's Vincent Romano." There was a long pause. Detective Sarah Williams had worked on cases involving Vincent's family for a decade, developing a strange professional relationship based on mutual respect and clearly defined lines. "Vincent. It's been a while. I need a favor, Sarah. It's not the kind of favor that will compromise your badge." "I'm listening." "Do you know a gang called the Iron Wolves? Specifically, a guy named Jake Malone?" Vincent heard Sarah sigh on the other end of the line. "Unfortunately, I do. We have 7 reports of extortion against them in the last 2 months. All the victims refused to testify. Too scared. And why can't you do anything? Because Jake has a cousin in the department. Detective Mark Morrison, from the Economic Crimes Division. Whenever we try to build a case, the evidence disappears, or the victims mysteriously change their minds. Vincent felt the last piece of the puzzle fall into place. It wasn't just a disorganized gang, they had police protection. That explained the reckless arrogance, the lack of fear of consequences. Sarah, what would you say if I told you that Jake and his gang recorded evidence of their own criminal activities and posted it publicly on the internet? There was another silence, followed by a low, dangerous laugh. I'd say you found a way around the corrupt cousin problem. Exactly. But I'm going to need you to be ready to act when I say so. And I'm going to need you to protect one specific family from any retaliation. The Williams family on Oak Street. Vincent was taken aback. How did you know? Because Donna Williams is my sister, Vincent. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. Vincent looked across the destroyed laundry room to where Donna lay, then to Jerome, who was arranging fallen flowers into neat little piles, trying to salvage what he could of his mother's business. Sarah, Vincent began. Jerome called me before he went to look for you, she said calmly. He was desperate, said the police didn't believe him when he tried to report it. He didn't know you were Vincent Romano when he described the most respected man in the fancy restaurant, where he went to ask for help. Vincent realized the cruel irony of the situation. The boy had run from his police officer sister, who couldn't help him because of departmental corruption, straight to the MAFIA boss who had the power to do what the law couldn't. Your sister is a brave woman, Sarah. She's raising an extraordinary son. Who brought you to my family because the system failed them. Vincent, I know who you are, I know what you do. But I also know you have a code. I'm asking you, not as a cop, but as a sister, to help me protect them the right way. Vincent looked back at Jerome, who was now showing Vincent a drawing he had made on a piece of paper. It was his mother surrounded by flowers, with the words "Mama is brave" written in childish handwriting underneath. Sarah, I'll send you links to all the social media sites where Jake has documented his crimes. He has built the case against himself. But I'll need your word, when this is over, your sister and Jerome will never be bothered by anyone again. You have my word. And Vincent? Thank you. As Vincent hung up the phone, Jerome approached him with the drawing. Mr. Romano, can I give you this? So you'll remember that Mom is strong like flowers, even when someone tries to hurt them. Vincent accepted the drawing, feeling something break and rebuild in his chest simultaneously. It was a simple gift from a child, but it carried the weight of everything he had lost and everything he now had the chance to protect. Jerome, I'll keep this forever. And I'll make you a promise. Your mother will never have to be afraid again. Neither will you. As he tucked the drawing into the inside pocket of his jacket, right over his heart, Vincent Romano finalized the plan that would not only change the lives of the Iron Wolves, but prove that sometimes justice and crime can work together when the goal is to protect the innocent. Jake Malone had made the fatal mistake of documenting his own crimes on social media. Now Vincent was going to use that digital arrogance against him in a way the young criminal could never have anticipated. For a moment, looking at that broken family that refused to break, everyone thought the story would end in yet another victory for the predators over the innocent. But those who understand true strategy know that the best revenge begins exactly when the enemy thinks they have already won, and Jake Malone was about to discover that he had chosen the wrong victims to terrorize. Jake Malone woke up the next morning feeling like his world had been turned upside down. His phone had exploded with notifications overnight, hundreds of messages, missed calls, and something that made his blood run cold, an Instagram notification informing him that his profile had been flagged for multiple violations of community guidelines. What the hell, he muttered, scrolling through his feed. All of his videos had been removed, his account suspended, and worse, screenshots of his posts were being shared by thousands of people with hashtags like #JusticeForDonna and #ProtectOurCommunity. Jake quickly opened TikTok, only to find that the situation there was even worse. Someone had created a compilation of all his most incriminating videos, edited in such a way that his own words became devastating evidence against him. The video had 3 million views in less than 12 hours. The folks in the Oak neighborhood are finally understanding who's boss around here, his own voice mocked from the screen, immediately followed by images of Donna's destroyed laundry room and Jerome crying. When you teach a lesson right, the other cockroaches learn quickly where their place is. The comments were an avalanche of public outrage. People identified Jake by name, posted the address of the bar he frequented, and even his family was being tagged in the posts. His own mother had commented, "I didn't raise my son to be a coward who beats up working women." Jake's phone rang. It was Cassie Morgan, the redhead with the snake tattoo. "Jake, have you seen what's going on?" Her voice was hysterical. "My YouTube channel has been taken down, I've lost all my sponsors, and people are posting my real address. How did this happen?" Jake was about to respond when he saw 3 police cars pulling up in front of his building. Through the window, he could see Detective Sarah Williams getting out of the lead car, a determined look on her face. "Cassie, the police are here. I have to go." "The police? Jake, what the hell did you do?" Before he could answer, loud knocks echoed through the apartment door. "Chicago police. Jake Malone, you're under arrest." Jake opened the door to find Sarah Williams holding an arrest warrant, flanked by 4 other officers. Behind her was a local media van. Someone had tipped off the press about the operation. "Jake Malone, you are under arrest for extortion, aggravated assault, and criminal threats," Sarah announced, her words being picked up by the cameras. "You have the right to remain silent. This is persecution." Jake shouted, struggling against the handcuffs. "You can't arrest me because of some videos." Sarah smiled coldly. "Actually, we can. Thank you for documenting your own crimes in such detail. It saved us a lot of investigative work." As Jake was dragged to the police car, reporters shouted questions about the Iron Wolves and the reign of terror they had imposed on small business owners. Cassie Morgan was being arrested simultaneously at her apartment across town, while Miguel Santos and other gang members discovered their faces plastered across local news outlets as community predators. But Vincent's real masterpiece began to unfold in the next few hours. Tony had worked all night, not only collecting digital evidence, but orchestrating something much more sophisticated. Vincent didn't just want to see Jake in prison, he wanted the entire Iron Wolf structure to collapse completely. At 2 p.m., while Jake waited in his cell at the police station, his phone, which had been seized, received a call that would change everything. It was from the manager of the bank where the gang kept its savings. "Mr. Malone, I need to inform you that all accounts associated with the Iron Wolves have been frozen by federal order. The IRS has launched a full investigation into money laundering and tax evasion." It turns out Vincent had contacts in some very interesting places. And when someone with his influence decides you need to be audited, the IRS discovers fascinating things about gangs that have never declared a single penny of their protection money. But the final blow came when Jake was taken in for questioning. Detective Sarah Williams sat across the table from him with a stack of papers and a tablet showing all the videos Jake had proudly posted. "Jake, I'm going to be blunt with you," Sarah said, sliding a photo across the table. "Do you recognize this woman?" It was a photo of Donna Williams in the hospital, with Jerome holding her hand. "That woman you assaulted yesterday is my sister," Sarah continued, watching Jake's face turn pale. "And that boy you threatened is my nephew. So you can imagine how personally invested I am in making sure you pay for every second of terror you've inflicted on my family." Jake tried to speak, but Sarah raised her hand. "I'm not done. Over the past 6 months, you and your gang have terrorized 47 different businesses in this district. 47 working families that you turned into your personal victims. But here's the interesting part: every penny you extorted, every threat you made, every act of violence, is documented. By yourselves." Sarah opened her tablet and began playing video after video. Jake watched himself threatening merchants, counting extorted money, boasting about teaching lessons to people who don't know their place. "Your digital arrogance has built the strongest case I've seen in my 15-year career. 23 federal charges, Jake. 23. And that's just the beginning." Jake finally found his voice. "I want a lawyer." Sarah smiled. "Sure. But I have bad news about that, too. It looks like your funds were frozen by the IRS this morning. You'll have to take a public defender. And I can guarantee you that the state has much better resources than anything you can afford right now." Meanwhile, in another interrogation, Miguel Santos was discovering that his situation was equally desperate. The prosecution had offered deals only to those who cooperated fully, and the list of people willing to testify against the Iron Wolves was growing by the hour. Cassie Morgan, the influencer who had filmed the extortions, faced not only criminal charges but a civil lawsuit from each family she had publicly humiliated. Her 50,000 followers had turned into 50,000 people demanding that she be banned from all social media platforms. At 6 p.m., Vincent received a call from Detective Sarah Williams. "It's done," she said simply. "Jake Malone has been formally charged with 23 federal crimes. Cassie Morgan faces 15 charges. Miguel Santos has already signed a full cooperation agreement. The Iron Wolves have just become history." Vincent was sitting in Donna's rebuilt laundry room, watching Jerome draw at a new table that had been installed that morning. The child was creating a mural on the wall, colorful flowers growing through cracks in the concrete. "And the family?" Vincent asked. "Safe. Donna is recovering well, and Jerome, well, I think that boy will grow up knowing that sometimes justice really does work." Vincent smiled, watching Jerome add a small figure to his drawing, a man in a suit helping a flower grow. "Sarah," Vincent said softly, "thank you for trusting me to do this right. Thank you for proving that sometimes the worlds of law and justice can work together." At that moment, the evening news began to broadcast the full story. Local gang destroyed by its own digital evidence. 8-year-old boy becomes community hero by seeking help. Joint operation results in largest extortion bust of the decade. Jake Malone, watching the news from his prison cell, finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. He had underestimated not only his victims, but the entire safety net that still existed for innocent people in Chicago. Jerome Williams wasn't just a desperate child, he was someone loved by people powerful enough to move mountains when necessary. As the city lights came on and Donna's laundromat shone like a beacon of renewed hope, one question remained. Was it possible that a chance encounter between a brave child and a dangerous man could truly transform two lives forever, creating a makeshift family that neither knew they needed so badly? 6 months later, Vincent watched Jerome hand out diplomas at a school ceremony. The boy had become the spokesperson for an anti-bullying campaign that transformed the entire community. Donna expanded the laundry to 3 stores, employing dozens of single mothers. The family Vincent had lost 30 years ago had been unexpectedly reborn. Jake Malone was serving 15 years in federal prison, his videos of arrogance now used as educational material on criminal consequences. The Iron Wolves became an urban legend, an example of how digital stupidity destroys lives. "Mr. Romano," Jerome said, handing him another drawing, this time showing 3 people united by a heart. "Thank you for teaching me that strength isn't about hitting others. It's about protecting those you love." Vincent kept the drawing about the heart, where he kept all of Jerome's gifts. He discovered that the best revenge against the violence that stole Maria was to build something she would approve of. If this story inspired you, subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes justice comes exactly when a brave child finds the right adult willing to fight for them.